Hi, Sara, Sheridan. Nice to see you. How are you?
I am good, thank you very much.
Good. I just wanted to come on quickly and ask you a very specific question.
Yes.
We have British Science Week coming up, and everybody at Five Libraries is always very interested to know about how authors weave in themes into their books. So, have you ever weaved in a science theme or any scientific references into any of your novels?
Loads. I mean, I suppose the Mirabelle books are really, they have little early bits of forensics. The Mirabelle books start in 51. The one I'm writing at the moment for later this year is 1959.
Yeah.
So they have certain amounts of things. They don't have DNA, only gets discovered in 1954, so there's no DNA tests or anything like that. But there are lots of little bits and pieces of very kind of early forensic work
Right.
that appear in the books. And then on the side of the more epic kind of historical stuff that I write, certainly almost every book actually has elements of that, because the period I write in is 1820 to about 1845, and this was a really interesting time in terms of the British Empire taking off and innovation and lots of scientific discovery. So a lot of stuff in the books, for example, Secret Mandarin, Robert Fortune goes to China. He's sent by the Royal Horticultural Society to steal tea plants because they want to set up the tea plantations in the Himalayas after the Opium War. They've discovered that they don't want their tea supply to be sort of reliant upon China.
Yeah.
And so he gets sent in, and the book is about a fictional exploration of his journeys in China. And there's a lot of botany in it for that reason.
Oh, wow.
Or you get as well in on Starlit Seas.
Yeah.
So there's botany there because one of the main characters there is a chocolate smuggler, and he buys chocolate. And there's a bit about how this chocolate is grown, and this is a time where there's a huge expansion in the chocolate processing industry. So when they get back to the UK, you actually get a couple of scenes that are with the Fry family, and the Fry family are trying to steal the Dutch cocoa kind of innovations that will allow them to make chocolate much more cheaply. You get this kind of industrial espionage going on. And on the Ice Maiden, certainly Scott's expedition, not so much James Clark Ross, which was really more geographical, but Scott's expedition, he considered himself there to do scientific research in the Antarctic. So a lot of the scenes are about, how they're checking out their diet. They split the men into different sections, which they did, and made them eat different things to see who was surviving in the cold better, because of their diet. And they're collecting samples. There's one scene in it which is based on a book called The Worst Journey in the World by Cherry Apsley Gerard, who was on the expedition. And he and two other guys went to steal emperor penguin eggs because they thought that the emperor penguins were a link between modern day birds and dinosaurs.
Oh my gosh, did they?
They did this journey at the height of the Antarctic winter. I mean, it was insane. They should have died. They didn't die, but it was genuinely the worst journey in the world.
Oh my
and they nearly freeze to death, but they get these emperor penguin eggs, and it's all about that sort of science as well. So these things, they do come in, particularly I think in that period, because so many of the people, like quite often I'm writing about travel or about innovation, and therefore people have these things. And the book I've been working on this year is called The Fair Botanist, and that has a number of female botanists in the book who are all involved one way or another, some of them legitimately, some a little bit illegitimately, with the move of the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh in the 1820s from Leith Walk, which was where it was sited, up to the place we know it now in Inverleith in Edinburgh. And how they moved those plants. There was a guy there called Robert Fortune, who was the head gardener, and he pioneered really how to move trees. You could move 46-foot trees with nothing, without really machinery. The guys would dig it out, they would put them in barrels, they would hoist them on carts, and these trees were sort of trundled through the streets of Edinburgh and then transplanted to the new site. And actually he lost very few trees, given how
what could have happened.
I think he had a loss rate of about 1 or 2%. So it was really, really successful. So so we see a lot of this, and we see in that book actually as well, there was a lot of work going on at that time with grafting and making new species to get better yields in farms. And so there's a thing called the Royal Caledonian Society, Royal Horticultural Caledonian Society, that might be Caledonian Horticultural Society. And they had a garden that was down by what is now the Botanics, and is now being subsumed into the Botanics, where they tried to make potatoes that gave you more potatoes. And it was actually a Scottish farmer who created what we consider the modern strawberry.
Is
So
that
up
right?
until then, we only had the little woodland strawberries, and it
Oh,
was in the 1820s that this guy cut it with another kind of berry and made our plump, delicious, gorgeous strawberries that we love.
I
So
didn't
there's
know.
a lot of that sort of stuff in the background that you can't put in overtly because people are not reading a science book, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, science is, I mean, I think this anyway, science is interspersed with our lives, just, you know, it's there all the time, but particularly in the period that you're writing about, because like you say, all of that sense of discovery, and I mean, it must have been such an exciting time to live
I know,
as
and
well.
quite dangerous. I mean, there was a lot of these guys, they didn't have, you know, they didn't have controlled studies. They were like, oh, I wonder if this drug helps you if you've got whatever. I'll just take some.
Yeah.
And you would get, you know, this thing with Simpson sort of when he's trying out anesthesia for the first time, just chloroforms everyone at a dinner party, and they're all like, oh, well, that worked. You're like, don't do it. They do it. They'll give it a lash. And I love that sort of have a go hero type
It's
thing.
that kind of I don't know, it's like a sort of spirit, isn't it, a spirit of adventure and discovery, and yeah, that fits in still with the idea of science, but yeah, everything is linked, isn't it? And yeah, that's fascinating. And
I think there is a sense in which our sense of risk has changed quite a lot over time. That's the thing that I notice when I'm doing the research. You would things you would never dream of doing that because they just seem too dangerous.
is that right?
And the late Georgians and the early Victorians are like, I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll die. Who knows? And it's not just that. It's like they will go somewhere that is inherently dangerous. They will decide that they're going to, you
Yeah.
know, map the Niger or something, and they'll just arrive in Africa with a set of pens and some buttons and think, well, here I go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's that kind of real have a go.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's yeah, particularly the Victorians, and I was watching a program about them with you know, Philippa Perry,
Oh yes.
and she was saying that something that I kind of knew, you'll know it already, but that the average age of a Victorian was something like 23, because they were such a, and so they were actually a very young and youthful society, not the stuffy kind of Victorians that we think of now, but they were actually quite sort of, like you're
Young.
saying, daring and exciting, and
The average life expectancy in the 1840s of a plant hunter, so someone like Robert Fortune or this cocoa smuggler guy, or you know, all of these characters, once you left the UK, it was 16 weeks. That's how
really,
dangerous it was. So
that's how dangerous it
people
was.
would literally get to India or China or something, get off the boat, get malaria and die. And there was a lot of that, which
Did
is what
people
brought
know
the
that?
average down.
They did
Yeah,
know.
they did.
They were
But I
aware.
mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of these people that went and joined the Bombay Marine and a lot of these kind of forces, they were people who didn't have a lot of money, but they
Mm.
were educated. That's why the Scots are overrepresented. So there was a lot of people who were educated, didn't have money, and this was kind of their chance to make it. And of course, in Where Are the Women, where I remap Scotland according to women's history, there are loads of scientists, like unbelievable amounts of brilliant female scientists that no one ever teaches
Oh,
kids about in
I know.
school, engineers and inventors. And my favourite one is Mrs. Lovey, who
Yeah.
in Georgian Edinburgh created a kind of liquid displacement set of balls that you put in dairies, and it helped you to measure the volume of liquid you had. And they're called Mrs. Lovey's balls. And they are used in a different form slightly, but they've been developed. But the Mrs. Lovey's balls are still kind of around with us today, along with umpteen mathematicians and
Yeah.
scientists. We have a real strong tradition in Scotland,
We
actually.
do. No, absolutely, we do. Absolutely. No, I agree. And I love that. Thank you so much. That's a real insight into a different aspect of your writing. So
Yay!
thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about that.
It's my pleasure. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Bye.